If you live in Northern Virginia or Southern Maryland and you have a dog, this will make sense in about 2 minutes because there's a reason some dog homes see ticks before their neighbors do, and it's usually not because your yard is bad. I want to tell you something that happened to me. Years ago, early spring, before most people even think about ticks, I found one in my own bed. Not outside, not in the yard, inside the house. And I remembered thinking, how did this tick get here this early? In a second, I'm going to show you the one part of the yard that most homeowners never think about and why dogs change everything. That moment changed how I think about ticks and how we protect dog homes. At the time, my yard looked fine. My neighbors weren't talking about ticks yet, but I had a dog. And here's the part most homeowners never get told. In a dog home, ticks usually start at the edges, not in the middle of the yard. Ticks don't spread evenly. They build up in places that stay cool, shaded, and a little damp. And those are the places dogs love to travel. Dogs don't spend most of their time in the center of the lawn. They walk the fence line. They cut through brush. They use the same shaded corners. They make little trails along the property line, and those paths are basically the highway between your dog and the tick habitat. So your dog brushes through those edge areas and brings that exposure right back to the door, the rugs, and the furniture. That's why dog homes often notice ticks first, even late winter or early spring. When people find a tick, the natural reaction is to treat the whole yard. And that reaction makes sense. You see a threat, you want it handled. But here's the problem. Most homeowners are never told where ticks actually live. So when they treat wide areas instead of specific areas that matter, treating everything doesn't change where ticks prefer. And broad, heavy coverage can raise exposure of pest control products, especially for dogs, because they're low to the ground and they spend their time exactly where the treatment settles. On top of that, the open lawn usually isn't where tick pressure is the highest. So people end up with the worst of both worlds. More product exposure and still having ticks. Ticks don't live evenly across a property. They cluster. I call these areas transition zones. It's not a fancy term, it just means when one type of ground meets another. Like where lawn meets woods, where mulch meets grass, along a stone wall, along fence lines, shaded edges where your dog walks through without thinking. Ticks like those areas because they're protected from drying out. So if you focus on the open yard, but you under-address shaded edges, you end up treating places ticks rarely use and missing places that actually create exposure. That's why it feels like you already handled it, but the ticks keep coming back. Here's how we think about tick protection. We don't try to sterilize the yard. We manage boundaries. In those shaded edge zones, we create a narrow protective band, usually about 6 feet wide, right where the ticks rely on that environment. We use a natural clay-based carrier so we can place product precisely. That lets us focus on high-risk edges instead of spreading product across areas that don't need it. Less product, better placement, lower exposure. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing it correctly. Now I need to say something that matters for every dog owner. Reducing tick pressure around your home is helpful, but it does not replace veterinary care for your dog. I'm saying that bluntly because I care about your pet. Even with a well-managed yard, your dog can still pick up ticks on walks, parks, trails, other yards, anywhere. And flea and tick prevention is a medical decision. My wife Lisa is a veterinarian. She's been practicing for over 30 years. And her message is always the same. Yard work and correct pest control reduces environmental risk. Preventatives are a vet decision. Talk to your veterinarian. So here's a simple way to think about it. Your veterinarian protects the dog. We reduce tick pressure around the property. Those layers work together. not one instead of the other. Now here's the piece most people never hear. Ticks just don't show up. They're spread because they're carried. And one of the biggest carriers on the property is mice. Mice move along the same edges. They nest close to foundations, and they help ticks move around a yard without you ever seeing it. So when we think about ticks, we also think about mice. That's why we use tick tubes to target ticks while they're feeding on mice, and why winter rodent control matters. Fewer mice in the winter often means fewer tick hosts in the spring. There's another reason we avoid treating everything. Your yard isn't just ticks. It's pollinators, it's beneficial insects, and amphibians like tree frogs that live in these same shaded zones. We want bees where they belong. We want frogs where they belong. We just don't want ticks on the dog or inside the house. Precision protects everything. So if you have a dog and you're seeing ticks early, that doesn't mean your whole yard needs a heavy treatment. It usually means your edge zones are doing what edge zones do, and your dog is doing what dogs do. Focus on the shaded borders, manage the transition zones, reduce pressure around the home, and keep your pet on a vet-approved prevention plan. That's how you protect your dog, your home, and the environment around it. And that's how we think about it. If you're in Northern Virginia or Southern Maryland and you want to help identify the high-risk edge zones around your home, we can walk the property with you and show you exactly where the tick pressure is most likely to come from. No drama, just clarity. I'm Gene, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.